answers while our speakers are still here so that they can take the questions and give answers to them. And immediately after that, I will go to the networking session. And those who need money, that is where to get the money. Amen? Hallelujah. All right, question. Dear speakers, I'll be posting the questions, and please make sure there's a microphone available to all of them. Let me start with Honorable Commissioner, Mr. Sam Gube. Somebody said, how can a layman assess the transportation opportunities available in Lagos? Is there a platform? Mr. Sam, please. Did you get the question, sir? Or you want me to come again? All right, sir. Thank you.
Okay, good. The transportation opportunities are huge. They are diverse, right? So when you're talking about normal transportation, so we have lag ride, for example, which we pushed out, which is like something that looks like Uber, but it crowds pool at the same time, right? We had put it out there and we had allowed people access it with as little as 150,000 to 700,000, depending on the time we did it, because the government was funding as well. And then you are able to pay over a period. So it is easy to do that. And some people came together to do that. We primarily target that to drivers who will become owners, right? Because we felt the driver equity in the transaction was important. When you put an asset that is of high value in the hands of someone that has no stake in it, then there's a lot of misbehavior. So that is one way to assess it. And whether it's the last mile bus, the lag ride bus on the transportation side, you could assess it in that way, right? When you then go to the bigger transactions, so you talk about the real transactions, those are big concession type transactions. And you need significant amount of commitment, not only in the amount of monies you intend to put into it, you need partnership, know-how, and so on and so forth. But that's not all. The rail in itself has all kinds of smaller opportunities in the rail line, cleaning the rail line, the coaches, running stores in the bus stations. You have some of the biggest train stations around. So if you look at the Marina station, for example, it's the size of a football field. And there will be all kinds of business opportunities running on that. There are opportunities around branding as well, advertising and all of that. So if you look at the full chain of what will be happening in the rail, right, it's a lot that you can participate on. But when it comes to the transportation system itself, sometimes there are also opportunities for technology, journey management, technology opportunities, payment systems, security systems, dash cam cameras, and every other thing that makes it work. There are opportunities also for car manufacturers, those who would manufacture cars and be able to fund and put those cars on stream. That is the chain of opportunities that exist within the transportation system, right? There could also be opportunities that you can create if you see something that we have not seen, but it will be useful to that system as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Please a round of applause for him. Let me go to Dr. Salame, please. Somebody said the interest rate on bank loan is a major challenge hindering business growth in Nigeria. What can be done in terms of policy to bring it as low as a single digit?
Right. I always knew that was going to come. Currently, I'm actually involved in a transaction, and the interest rate offer is 29%. So this is not theory. But you know, the challenge is at least twofold. Well, let's start. What is interest rate? Forgive me for going down this route, because I think you need to understand if you are going to then understand the issue about the policy. Interest rate is essentially a return on money. It doesn't matter whether it is through bonds or whether it's the bank that is lending you. Somebody is giving you money and is demanding returns on it. And those returns cover three things. Forgive me, I'm a university professor, so it's just the way it is. But it covers three things. The first is what we call the risk of asset erosion, essentially inflation. Today, so in other words, think about this. If you give me 100 naira today, it means, I say in 1 year I will come and collect it. You could have spent it today. If you don't spend it today, you collect it in a year's time. If it cannot buy you in a year's time what it could buy you today, the value of your money has disappeared. So today, if you give me the money, if I don't give you 121 naira at the current rate of inflation in a year's time, that money cannot buy in 1 year what it could buy today. I hope everybody understands what I'm saying. So, for as long as inflation is high, interest rates cannot come down. It's as simple and as straightforward as that. Indeed, one of my own big areas of push is that the people who are in deposit accounts, who are in savings accounts, forgive me, the system get as it be. Because what we did, and I was one of those who had done this many years ago, His Royal Highness, the former Emir of Kano, was still governor of the central bank at the time. When we said, the banks were, forgive my language, exploiting savings account deposit holders. And we said, you know what? We must set a minimum threshold. And that minimum threshold, I think, is 30% of what is called the MPR, which is the policy rate. Now, today, at 30%, inflation at 21%, those who are in savings account deposits are essentially having their money eroded. So that's the first reason, that if inflation is plus 20%, and we're talking of 21%, until and unless we bring inflation down, it is going to be difficult to bring interest rates down. So that's headache number one, probably the biggest headache. The second key reason is now specific to the borrower. If I'm going to lend, and forgive my choice, if I'm going to lend to Shell as opposed to lend to myself, Shell is probably more reliable. And so what is called the risk premium, the project or the borrower risk premium, for many of you here, there are two levels of interest rates. There are prime lending rates and there are maximum lending rates. Almost all of us, barring Sam and barring Tony, are going to pay maximum lending rates. Why? Because your risk is too high. It's as simple, and Pastor Tony made that point, I thought, very eloquently, that unless the risk associated with a borrower or a project comes down, you've got a problem. So that's the second key reason. But the major reason why interest rates are where they are today, if you think about it, interest rates, as I said, 29%. Inflation, 21%. Okay, imagine if inflation was 9%. Then you can. So that's the key thing. And by the way, let me also say this, because again, I'm an economist and I have been for a long time. For Nigeria, once inflation is beyond 12%, it is actually adverse for this economy. It's what we call the inflation threshold. it is bad for the economy once inflation goes beyond 12%. Now, for all sorts of reasons that I'm not going to go into, inflation is high. And by the way, inflation is high not just in Nigeria. Inflation is high globally. Why? Russia, Ukraine pushed up prices, disruptions to supply chains, all sorts of reasons. Which is why one of the things you are seeing globally today is interest rates rising in order to bring down inflation. And so that's now where the real problem lies. To bring down inflation, interest rates go up. And yet, to increase investment, interest rates need to come down. So the only way this makes sense is that if we are very aggressive in bringing down inflation, yes, there will be a period of pain, but subsequently, as long as we don't allow inflation to go back up, we can really manage things. But let me make that point very clearly. Anybody who says to you, I can bring down interest rates without bringing down inflation, may we look that matter well.
Please, a round of applause for Dr. Doyin Salami. So, as long as inflation is high up there, the interest rate will keep growing. But we trust God that all will be well. All right, 2 questions, and I'm going to pose them to Prof. So you take them immediately. Somebody said, are there available links to micro-agricultural investment, and how secured or reliable are they? Are there links to micro? Because I remember you said we should start small and think big. Are there links to micro-agricultural investment, and how secured or reliable are they? And the second one is interesting. Say, I invested some reasonable amount into agriculture for 2 years now, and I've not gotten access to my fund. Where do I go from here? All right, please hand the mic to Prof. So he invested some reasonable. The word reasonable makes it weighty. So, what is your counsel? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The first one is about links to micro-agricultural investment. There are links, and we talked about Farm Crowdy or Crowdyvest, and we talked about Thrill Agric, and so on. So I would suggest that you go on Google and you put in there micro-agric investments opportunities. That will probably lead you to a long list. And I would then suggest that take the list one by one, find the one that you recognize somebody on that list, and then make a call to that person and say, what's going on in Farm Crowdy? I think this proofing of the sources or opportunities for investment is very crucial. Nigeria has a very bad name for 419, and it's a well-deserved name. So don't be caught by 419 if you're a Nigerian, because you know that if there's an opportunity to cheat, you'll probably be cheated. So you have to do due diligence. Find out about them. If they have an address, go to the address. Just pass by the road. You may find that the address they've given you is a church or a warehouse or something. So you need to do that. And I mean, it's money that you're investing. And just like Mrs. Sonny is very careful to protect her business, protect your investment. But there are many investment opportunities, micro, small, medium. There are many. And there are many also that are provided by the government. And if you're interested in that, then you can also pursue that. There are, for bigger people, there is the what they call it, anchor borrower. That's not for micro, it's for big ones. And that's by the central bank. So there is money, as Mrs. Sonny said. There is plenty of money to be lent. But we have to do as much diligence as Imagine Africa does to make sure that you are worthy to be lent money. You should investigate the sources to be sure they are worthy to receive your money. And I think it leads me to the second question. That somebody invested money for 2 years and he says he has not received, is it sizable or sufficient returns? I think it depends on what the investment was on. Somebody just whispered to me that, oh, I planted cocoa trees, and in 3.5 years, the trees are fruiting. Some investments in agriculture take time. So if you planted oil palm, or you planted rubber trees, as the pastor said, it will take some years before the trees grow, before you can exploit them. So find out what you are investing in. The shortest investment in agriculture is poultry, broilers, because within 6 weeks, the broilers are ready to be slaughtered. But your investment may take a little longer than 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks or 12 weeks, for the company to do all the hand waving. But as I pointed out, if they promise more than they should, you should be careful. Because a 20% returns at the interest rate of 29% for borrowing, that doesn't sound like it's something that is feasible. But certainly, Agric, as you saw in the graphs, I think shown by Dr. Salami, Agric is a dependable place to put your money. Every year, the investment in agriculture has been providing returns. It may not be very high, but it is there. Whereas some other investments, it will be minus. Agric is hardly ever minus. You will always get a positive return. So I encourage you to think of that as well. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Prof. Please a round of applause for. So finally, this is for Pastor Mrs. Sonny. Somebody right here under this roof, he said, I have developed a food product to God's glory, which some recently got the regulatory approval. Over 1,000 units have been sold during the last phase, with over 1 million turnover in 6 months. But selling to a larger market has been strenuous, as we couldn't compete with machineries and factory setup. Is this a venture you can fund, provided your questions are answered? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. In principle, we're happy to fund food, agri-business, but obviously, remember the parameters I talked about. So it will vary from business to business, from entrepreneur to entrepreneur. When we take a break, feel free to walk up to me and I will listen to you. But we'll have to do our due diligence. We have to be sure that, yes, and you have to remember all the things that I said earlier. So thank you.
All right, thank you. So finally, please. Okay.
Please, while you are having your refreshments, remember that this is a church and we're going to have service here tomorrow morning. So please be careful so that you don't, okay? We're going to have service here tomorrow morning. Eat responsibly, eat legitimately. Which other word? God bless you. Eat well. Eat well. God bless you in Jesus' name.
A round of applause for Daddy. Look at your neighbor and say, my friend, eat well. All right. We have one more question from Daddy. Please hand over the microphone to Pastor Remi Oluboba. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This question, Professor Salami, I'm worried, and the reason is not far-fetched, because it's like we have had this before, we have seen the presentations before, we have seen the figures before. I've listened to Dr. Salami more than 30 years. I was in the Lagos Business School, and so we seem to have the solution. However, there's something wrong with the system. Just about last week, there's this announcement that, the deregulation, the downstream deregulation, by the way, I spent 26 years of my working life in the oil industry. And we have been advocating that the only way that we can reasonably get out of this problem is full deregulation. And now the announcement came to say, it's been pushed off again. And the problem is this. We have a new regime coming. But the trend is well known. A government comes in on their radar is the second term. So things they would have wanted to do first term, they're looking at the second term because, they don't want to offend people. Now the question is this: have we got to the breaking point? That point in which we have no choice but to take decisions that would leave this country out of this quagmire. I mean, as it were, are we depressed enough to make strategic decisions? Because that is the problem. That is the problem. You, as the chief economic advisor, one of the best brains in economics in this country, you have been with the government at least for 2 years. What is the impact? We don't seem to know, and we have many other people like that who are well-versed, who are well-grounded. The government is not listening. Is there going to be a change? Or are we got to the nadir of our depression? Are we going to have a turnaround now? I hope other people are as worried as I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Dad. All right. Dr. Doyin Salami, please take it away, sir. Okay, there's going to be just a few minutes, a photograph session with the speakers, quickly with the media. And once that is done, we'll go back to that question. Please be patient. We're still going to go into the networking session. But we are gradually coming to the end of this program. And trust me, it's been a life-changing and value-adding program. Please, as you are eating, keep an eye on your neighbor if he or she is eating and drinking responsibly. Because tomorrow is Sunday, and there's going to be service here. Thank you for your cooperation. Let me thank your neighbor. Say, my brother, thank you for your cooperation. All right, so in a jiffy, Immediately as Dr. Doyin Salame will speak to the question asked, quickly we're going to take our offering and we go to the networking session. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Right. I thought it was going to be an uneventful afternoon and I can avoid, but obviously it's not going to be. My view is a very simple one. Where we are today, we cannot continue like this. Some will doubtless argue, oh, we've said that before. But there are some new dimensions that I think are worth thinking about. The Honorable Minister for Finance, Budget and National Planning has said many times that Nigeria has arrived at a position where we are borrowing to pay subsidy. Let me repeat that just so you can understand and internalize it. We are borrowing to pay subsidy. That's number one. Number two, we are at a position in the oil industry. Our national oil production is about 1.3 million barrels of crude oil. And as I said, we could do up to 1.8 million, and potentially Nigeria's ambition is 4 million barrels of crude oil per day. But think about it this way. 1.3 million, Abi. Take out from 1.3 million, take away 445,000 barrels from 1.3 million. That leaves you with just under 900,000 barrels of crude oil. It is that 900,000 barrels that is available essentially for export. And by the way, for those of you who know the oil industry, and I'm sure my boss knows the oil industry, NNPC has commitments that are based on its oil production. In other words, there are commitments that are anchored, in fact, are supported or have even oil production already committed to that. And so, if we continue like this, forgive me, as you asked, are we at the nadir where we must change? My answer would be no doubt. If we allow it to go beyond here, then the consequences would be even more difficult. And let me just correct, or at least put in the, well, it's already in the public space if you read today's newspapers. The government's decision on fuel subsidy is actually to expand the consultation to include the incoming administration. Let me explain it like this. By law, subsidies got to go by the end of June. The Petroleum Industry Act was slightly amended to allow, I think it was 18 months. Those 18 months come to an end at the end of June. And so, unless that act is amended again, and I'm not sure there is an appetite for that. Secondly, the Appropriation Act, in other words, the Budget Act, also makes financial provision in the budget for subsidy payments only for the first half of the year. Which means from the end of June, from at least 2 legislations, subsidy pretty much becomes illegal. I hope everybody understands me. And what the government has simply done, because I'm one of the people, I'm sure if you've read the newspaper reports, at least today, you would have seen, yes, I'm one of those who has been working with other colleagues, the Minister of Finance, the Central Bank, blah, 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 on how best to remove the subsidy. We do not misunderstand that people will be adversely affected. The key question has got to be as follows. How do we cushion the impact on the most vulnerable? But more than that, how do we build a coalition that enables subsidy to be removed successfully? Nigeria is not at a point where she can afford, how should we put this, a blowback to say, okay, you take out subsidy and then the streets become ungovernable. No government can or should allow that to happen. And this is a democracy. And that therefore means consultations have to be extensive. If we were to take subsidy out today, whoever comes in will inherit that decision. And they will have to manage it. And so I don't think it is unreasonable to say that the current government team that is working towards the removal of subsidy should be complemented by representatives of the incoming government. That way, there is ownership. One of the key concerns that people have expressed is, lack of continuity of policy, blah, 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 blah. Well, this is, in my view, a very direct and deliberate attempt to ensure that that continuity is afforded. Before I drop the mic, there was a question that the dear zonal pastor had raised earlier. How do we get the mindset of Nigerians to change such that it isn't short term? It has to be more long term. People are willing to clear the land, plant, water, wait, and then harvest. I'm afraid that it's going to take a bit, because over the last many decades, we have built a system where it's about short term. We have built so many uncertainties into the system that nobody wants to risk their money and not get it back. And therefore, you stay at the short end of the risk curve. Let me repeat that. We have all, and don't say it's government. In a number of instances, decisions were taken by governments in recognition of government's sense of what people want, where we have built uncertainties into the system. And the risks within the system are such that nobody, you say, if we put your money there today, what if they change the policy tomorrow? In which case, a policy that was favorable to you today becomes unfavorable to you tomorrow. I ain't taking that risk. I am going to invest my money where, now. In fact, almost daily return. I can be seeing the money growing as I am doing. Indeed, I felt for my Egmo prof when he said agriculture. He said, agriculture is not for the faint-hearted. I am telling you that. I invested in agriculture. I came away with a very sizable loss, believe me. And therefore, anybody who wants to do agriculture, when we say agriculture, look, if it rains in the wrong time, you're done. If it rains at the wrong volume, you're done. And if it then doesn't rain, it is, as they say, it is well. Now, and so, this now, Sam, even though he's no longer here, made a point, and I think it's a very important point. Citizen engagement. If all of us do not understand and agree that it is important for inflation to be low, because it's a source of risk. It's a source of risk. If all of us do not agree that policy continuity has to be, if we don't agree that those things that are the source of risk must be removed, then don't expect anything. I will end by simply saying this. China is able to lend us money. In fact, not just us, many countries money. Why? Because its people save at an incredible rate. And the question has got to be, the question ordinarily would be, why don't we save? Well, remember what I told you earlier. If you're getting 6-7% on your savings and inflation is 21%, how does that work? And so we have, as a nation, as a people, got to come to the position where we say that the future of this country is important to all of us, and therefore those things that are obstructing our progress, all of us have to forswear them. It cannot work by saying it's government. By the way, remember,
sorry, Prof. You know, if I can ask, sorry, because please, you are in the policy. Okay. What has changed between the 70s and the 80s when Nigeria was a net manufacturing company? Because you stood in Mile 2 and you saw vehicles moving to West Africa,
yes,
with manufactured goods.
Yes, yes.
Why did he, you know, yes, what changed?
Very simple.
Yeah.
What changed? One of the things that changed is that everybody wants a strong currency. What is a strong currency? A strong currency is a currency that attracts imports and disadvantages exports. So if you're making your Volkswagen, your Toyota, your Peugeots, and you're building a strong currency, be careful. Because with a strong currency, the cost of imports come down. And the ability of imports to compete against your domestically produced goods rises. I keep saying it, that for me, one of the games that I would all hope that as we go forward, Nigeria's political class does not engage in is the politics of price. What do I mean by that? When you say we want an exchange rate like this, that's not what you want. What you want is an economy that is productive. If what you ask for is an exchange rate that is, where are we today? Well, depending on which one you take. You say you want an economy that the exchange rate is 100 to 1 or even 1 to 1. It's not a problem. But please be mindful. What is the impact of that on domestic production? Sorry? Now, for me, what we must aim for as a country are the following. Low inflation, because that is what protects the value of the income that you all have. A productive economy. Why? Because that's the basis on which jobs can be created. But it's not just a productive economy. It's the following actually. A fast-growing, inclusive, globally competitive economy that is modern is what Nigeria needs. It is not about the exchange rate. If you say it is about the exchange rate, I guarantee you, I have been an economist since I was the age of 26. I am 60. I have enough experience of other countries and done enough work to be able to say without mincing words, we should not be focused on a price. We should be focused on the economy in its aggregate. Why do you think, when people say, oh, we're the biggest economy on the continent, I say, be careful, oh. You know that musician, Egungun, be careful. No, let me tell you why they say that. You know, the masquerade is fully decked. Face supposedly covered, but they are clever enough to put vision holes in it. But even with that, Express is fast-running cars. Egungun, be careful. What is the Egungun and the Express here? Nigeria's economy is about $520-30 trillion, but the population is 200 million. Our income per head is just about $2,000 per head. In 1990, yes, 1990, Nigeria's income per head was about $560, $580 per person. China in that year was 368. Nigeria's income per head was bigger than China. Today, China has a population that is probably 5-6 times our size. In that same period, she has moved her income per head from 360 to more than 12,000. We have moved from 560 to 2,000. Forgive me. This is not about God. This is about the choices we made. As a people, one of the things we must avoid going forward, God is willing to help, but we have been endowed with the capacity, with the resources. If we refuse to use them, then it is not a God matter. It is about the choices we have made. You know what they say? No matter how it is how you lay your bed. So, the primacy of your decision and the responsibility of accepting that you made the decision, the responsibility for the outcome is very important. Let me end. Don't go around asking, is this exchange rate we want? No. The task for the politicians, for the policymakers, has got to be to grow the Nigerian economy in the same way that other economies that were our peers have grown their own. If you're going to sit down and be asking for exchange rate, all I will say is, it is well.
All right, it is well. Please a round of applause for Dr. Doyin Salami. Great insights, amazing statistics. All right, at this point, can I ask the choir to please get behind the microphones? And shall we all rise as we take